Hello and welcome to the 42 Rugby show here in beautiful Chicago. It's another busy day, a crazy week with the Cubs World Series success and lots of celebrating, hopefully more celebrating to come for Irish rugby fans. We're delighted to be joined by former Ireland coach Eddie O'Sullivan to look forward to an historic occasion in Soldier Field. Eddie, thanks so much for joining us. How are you feeling about this challenge for Ireland right now?
Well, it's probably it's difficult as ever to beat an All Blacks team at the moment. If you look at their form over the last, I suppose, year, it's extraordinary, their consistency at a very, very high level. So if you're going to play them, now is probably the toughest time to meet them. Probably playing them away from home, it doesn't help us. There'll be a good Irish crowd tomorrow, but it won't be the same raucous affair you're going to get in Aviva Stadium in a couple of weeks' time. So it's a difficult time to pitch up here. As I said, they're on a roll, and they're kind of on a mission at the moment, which is never a good sign for us.
Yeah, 18 consecutive wins, 60 tries in 10 test matches, and they haven't conceded too many either. It's been relentless from the All Blacks. We're going to come to the All Blacks' tactical and technical strengths, but let's look at that Ireland team that Joe Schmidt has selected first. Rob Kearney at fullback. What do you think that maybe hints at for Ireland's point of view?
I think it's a smart selection, really, because of what's in front of him. It's very easy to say shake it up now, but you're going into an away game against the best team in the world by a country mile. To give themselves a shot at winning the game, and you go into every game you believe you have a shot at winning it and what you got to get done to do it. He's got to put out an experienced unit, and he's playing his cards in that respect with the backs particularly. I think the forwards is a bit of a different discussion, but certainly the backs, the obvious one was to put Payne to full back, leave Rob Kearney on the bench, and then put Ringrose in for his first cap against the All Blacks. I just think that's too much of an expectation around Ringrose. I think he's on the bench, which to me is even a slight surprise, but it's good to see him there. He may get a run out tomorrow, but I would think his first start will be next week against Canada. I think that's a smart move by Schmidt. I think he's keeping a bit of stability in the back line. It's a smart thing to do in the circumstances, so I'm not too shocked by that at all.
Yeah, Joe's going to get criticised as being conservative again, but having Joey Carberry and Gary Ringrose on the bench there, it's pretty exciting for us.
Look, I've been down that road myself. It's very easy to say, pick this guy, pick that guy, but at the end of the day, he's got to look at what's the best combination here to keep stability on the field, to keep Ireland in this game. If Ireland are going to win this game, it's going to be about staying in the game, and staying in the game with 5 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, like they did the last time. How they got there the last time is another discussion again, but to be in the game with 10 minutes to go, that's how you're going to sneak a victory. Now, if you go out with a very inexperienced, maybe midfield combination, and it goes wrong, go badly wrong, So why take that risk when he's got the fix already to keep it nice and steady? The guys is going to know what they're heading into. They know what's in front of them. I think that's important. I think it's a smart move on his part.
Yeah, I agree with that, because even if you look at some of the All Blacks games this year, look at Australia in the Rugby Championship, Dane Haley-Petty making his debut and second appearance on the wing, the All Blacks ruthlessly picked him apart.
Oh yeah,
he was torn
to shreds. He was all over the place defensively. And the way that we see the All Blacks at the moment, you just miss a beat and they're going to skin you alive and they're going to score a 7-pointer. And they've been, although with Bowden Barr's kicking, it might be a 5-point, but they still get enough of them to hurt you. So you really need an experienced crew around this weekend. Now, probably the back row, the surprise was O'Mahony and O'Brien being left behind. I thought they'd done enough in terms of match preparation to get there. I think O'Brien is a guy that the All Blacks don't like playing. He's such a physical specimen. He can really mix it with them. He's very strong over the ball in defence. He's a great ball carrier. I think they're probably a little bit happy that Joe Schmidt's gone with a slightly different combination on the back row. But again, I'd always be reticent about jumping on a coach about selections, because the one thing he has that we don't have is he's closer to the whole thing. Maybe he saw the guys in training, just felt they weren't there, and you've got to give him that latitude to make that decision.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you experienced that. Before we move on from that, did it ever make you waver, or that criticism, how did it affect you?
No, because if you start into that second guessing yourself, look, there'll always be opinions out there, and they're valid. People are entitled to say, I think you should have this, I think you should have that. But the ultimate decision is yours, and you have the most information. People are making a lot of those decisions on the blind. They haven't seen the guy in training. They haven't seen his form on the training field. They haven't talked to him. He might have said, I'm just a little bit off. You don't know what the conversations were. And at the end of it, you've got to sit down and say, this is what I think is the best combination for us. Next week could be different. And he's got to back himself. If you start taking on board other people's opinions, start second guessing yourself, you're not going to be able to do the job. And a coach of his experience is never going to be sucked into that, what do other people think. He didn't get where he was by listening to other people. He can hear them, but he doesn't listen to them.
He's got full conviction, I think. I don't think he's going to waver in his opinions.
What would you expect from a guy, a coach of his calibre at this level? He's going to do what he thinks is the right thing and run with it. That's what he's got to do.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if he gets justified. So we've looked at All Blacks tries throughout the year, 60 of them. It took quite a while to work through that. A lot of tries from turnover, 35%, and then 23% from kick return. Is that going to be the big area of strength for the Kiwis?
Well, the way they're playing at the moment, they're playing in a kind of a comfort zone around themselves. They have a very high skill level, they have huge confidence, and they're playing a kind of a complete type of rugby. They're playing what I like to call a spread offence, where they literally have a presence in every part of the field. They have a presence in 4 major channels on the field. And
okay, so that's different players designated to each zone on the pitch, is that how it works?
Yeah, they pick the forwards kind of split up across the field into 4 channels, and they've back sprinkled among them. Now the thing here is these forwards are just as comfortable on the ball as the backs. So it's not like you've got a guy here as a trucker. He's going to take it and punch it up every time, you know he's going to do. These guys can literally pin and pass, get their hands free, and they can truck it. So they have all these options. And the challenge for the defence is that they have a presence everywhere, and their awareness then of where the defence is weak is extraordinary. They know exactly, you know, where you're short, where you're kind of going to struggle, and they get the ball there very quickly. So over like 6, 8, 10 phases, you just have to screw up once and they're gone. And that's immense pressure on the defence. Because as well as being in the right place, then you still have to make tackles, you still have to get to the ruck, you still have to have a presence at the breakdown. So the stress on the defence is extraordinary. And I think we've seen in a lot of the games this year that teams have stayed with them for 45, 50 minutes. Yeah. And the All Blacks haven't really kind of gone up a gear. It's not like they've changed. They just keep doing what they're doing, and you just fall apart. You can't live with them anymore. And, you know, guys get fatigued, they make defensive errors, and once you screw up, they're going to kill you. And they have that presence of mind, which brings to play as well this kind of mental toughness that we've seen around the All Blacks in recent years. Since they won the World Cup in 11, and I know they put a huge emphasis on their mental preparation for that World Cup. Their high performance director, Mike Chu, the sports psychologist, he built a whole structure and process around their performing at high performance. And they now have a comfort about playing the game to the point where if they go behind, if they make mistakes, they regather themselves. Like previous All Blacks teams were, despite their ability, were vulnerable to having a bad day. And if you got in behind them or you messed them up, they couldn't come back. And we saw their composure 3 years ago in Dublin. Like, previous years an All Black team was kind of 20 points down. There's no way back from. They just played on, and got there. And it was by the skin of their teeth. But they had this capacity to do that. And that's because they're in a comfort zone mentally, and they're in a comfort zone with their skills. And so they're playing across the field in 4 channels. They're relentless with the ball. They don't kick or they don't run as much as you would think. They tend to kick when they need to kick, but when they do run, it's with a purpose. Their line-out probably tomorrow, to me, is an area that maybe we can have a little bit of a look at. 3 starting locks gone. Yeah. You have to think, you got to turn the screw there. You know, I don't think they'll have any impact on our line-out. Turner will be the go-to guy that they want him. He's not going to be touched. Kano isn't going to get near him, you know. So I think that's an area we will have probably 100% success. We may be able to cause problems for them there, and their line-out has creaked at times. But then again, you know, we saw against Australia, they butchered Australia on 40% possession the last time. So that's you can't build your house on that and say if we do that we're going to win. But it's certainly an area we can look at, that we can deny them this possession that they can wear us down with. And I think the line-out is probably the first place I'll be looking at tomorrow to see if we can cause some rankle there. Yeah,
you've summed it up beautifully. You've summed up the All Blacks rounded thread. I think their mental skills. The decision-making aspect is a really interesting one. We went down to New Zealand recently and we spoke to Jason Holland at the Hurricanes, the former Munster centre. Yeah. He said they spend a lot of training time on all players getting that decision-making ability up to the scratch, because it's not just about those skills. It's not just about the handling. It's about the ability to use the skill.
Well, the difference between a skill and a technique is passing the ball is a technique. Skill is passing at the right time. You know, and there's a big difference. You know, you see guys in training passing the ball beautifully. You know, nothing goes wrong. Goes from A to B to C to D. But in a game, that pass is fine if you've pinned a defender. And you see the All Blacks, that awareness that if they sit a defender down, they'll make the pass, put somebody in space. The French had a great saying about when you give a pass to somebody, you have to give them a gift, so that when they receive the ball, they're in a better place than you are. We don't always apply that in Europe. We tend to give, sometimes they're hospital passes. The guy gets the ball and gets whacked. So the aspect of New Zealand rugby at the moment is that they all have this skill to make a good decision and a good execution. And that means then when they play across the field in 4 channels, you're not just getting guys who are given the ball to truck it and set a ruck. These guys can run. If you sit down, they'll pass. If you turn your shoulders, they'll punch under you and get their hands free. And if they get their hands free, it's good night, and it's an offload. And if you don't, they'll win the ruck, and they'll find another space to go after. And this relentless kind of 15, 20 phases, you can defend brilliantly for 15, 20 phases. On the 21st phase, someone gets a soft shoulder, and it's good night. They're in under the post. And that's the problem playing them at the moment, this relentless ability to keep pressure on you at every contact area, at every engagement with you. You have to do everything right, or they're going to hurt you.
Yeah, really interesting, the forwards' handling ability, and that was again apparent in our kind of stats from the try scoring. The passages that led to those 60 tries, there were 54 offloads in total, and so many of them were front rows, locks, back rows. It wasn't even halfbacks who generally don't offload as much. It's just across the board.
But that's when talk about skill. That's their ability to read the situation and take the right decision and then execute it well. That's the three parts of skill: reading the situation, based on that, make your decision, and then executing. Like, you do see some guys make a good decision and it's a bad execution, all right? But to me, that's much better than making a bad decision. That's a much harder thing to fix. And this New Zealand team, to be fair to them, they have this capacity right across the field. As you said, forwards and backs mixed together, all capable of doing the basics of pin and pass or taking into contact.
Looking at the All Blacks defence, there have been a few times where they've broken down the fringes of rucks this season. South Africa had a power play and targeted them there rather, and the Argentinians had those kind of pick and jam power plays to create that weakness. Is that an area that Ireland can really look to target?
Yeah, I think if you look at their defence system, it's not very hardwired, and that everyone knows exactly what they're doing and where they should be. Again, a bit like their attack, they depend on a lot of reading of the game, and they are occasionally vulnerable to making individual errors. Like, you go back to 3 years ago in the two first tries they gave up in Aviva Stadium. Like, Conor Murray's try was just one-off runners that they were soft in the contact, and they got to the far side of the field, and it was like 12 metres shorter, and 5 All Blacks wrapped around, and Conor Murray picked up the ball and fell over the line on the infield. There was nobody there. They can occasionally make those mistakes. Now, not very often, and I think that was that game. They probably weren't really dialed in, and once they got dialed in, it was different. But they had this flexibility around the defence that not many coaches put in, because it means everybody, again, making good decisions all the time. But you see them occasionally making reads and that. But the one thing they do very well is they do get caught. You can get them and you can get in behind them, but their ability to scramble is extraordinary. Like, you might get a line break, and you're probably going to need 2 or 3 offloads to finish it, which is very hard, because they'll flood back. And if there's a ruck after the offload, if there's a ruck after the line break, unless that ruck is lightning, you're going to find 14 black jerseys in front of you again. This capacity to regroup. So they do give up line breaks. Their line break stats are not ridiculously low, but their capacity to recover is very, very good. And again, that's down to work rate. It's down to knowledge of where to be. They don't just chase back. They come back in an organised fashion and put a line of bodies in front of you again. Yeah,
I think it'd be interesting to see. Aaron Schmidt especially is a guy to watch there. He does make good decisions. He comes in from behind the ruck, comes in left, right.
Yeah.
But at times, when he's dragging someone to the other side of the ruck, that maybe a prop can go, oh, hang on, or overdrift or overfold.
Yeah, and he fills a lot, which for a defence coach, you probably don't want your scrum half filling your front line. You want your defence coach hovering in behind to organise the defence, and possibly as well, if Zanton goes in behind you on a grubber or a kick, the scrum half is your man. But if he's jumping into their front line, there's vulnerability behind him, or it means that they're not getting the job done on the front line. He's got to augment it by jumping in there. And you're right, he might pull somebody with them. And they have shown to be a little vulnerable, you're right, through the pick and jam in that area. And certainly Argentina went after him in that area the last time they played, to a fair bit of success. But again, how many tries came out of it? Again, they got caught, but they got back. So, like, you can get them, and you think you have them, and then suddenly they come back, and they're smart about their penalty count as well. They're very strategic about when they give away their penalties. Yeah,
very good at coaching the ref as well. Aaron Smith especially.
Yeah.
Pretending that his teammate's trying to release the ball.
That's right. Yeah.
You mentioned the line out earlier on. Ireland have scored a lot of maul tries under Joe Schmidt. It's always been a strength. Possibly on the last maybe year, it's faded a little bit, but that has to be a big area of strength.
Yeah, I got to test them, because like if you get a good maul going, the problem is with the defence. So it's an area that, as I said a while ago, we're certainly going to win our lineouts. I can't see us having trouble out of touch. We have more shots in our locker there, but then if we can build good mauls and go after them, and like if you think about the kick that had Johnny Sexton put through, would have probably won the last game. That came from a maul. They couldn't defend it. They gave away the penalty. It was on, So I mean, those opportunities will arise. And I think it's an area we could get our teeth into. If we disrupt their line of great, but there certainly are one we can build. But I think we're going to have to vary that. We can't just say we'll just maul them and look for penalties to get close and to get a try. We're going to have to come up with something a little bit more different. We're going to have to do something that's going to move them out of their comfort zone, which is very hard to do. But you'd like to see tomorrow some adjustment in our game plan that's going to make them think twice. Because I would think if they anticipate what we're throwing at them, I don't think it'll be enough of a challenge. You know, it's not going to break them down.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see what Joe Schmidt comes up with tactically. It was really interesting when we caught up with him during the week. He mentioned that Steve Hansen has been a big influence on his career, and we're going to take a look at that interview right now. How does it feel to face your native land?
Hey, look, I grew up supporting the All Blacks. I think they're a super team, and so I suppose it's a little bit complicated, but there's nothing complicated about preparing a team, and you know, the respect I have for the players that I work with and how hard they work. It's a pretty simple formula. I want them to do the very best that they can, and if that is managing to beat the All Blacks, then I think that would be fantastic for them. And you know, there's been a number of frustrations for Irish teams in the past, and it would be great to bury a few of those frustrations.
I was interested to ask a bit about your time in New Zealand. We met some of your friends down in Mullingar. They were telling us that you're playing influence down there. But I was more interested maybe in your playing career in New Zealand, which we don't know as much about. What was it that you enjoyed about playing rugby?
I think it's when I grew up playing rugby in New Zealand, it was you know, something that I did with my friends, you know, and so you just really enjoyed the opportunity to get out and play sport with your friends, and rugby was something that we all participated in, and so you know, it was certainly something that you watched on TV a lot, and you aspired to be good at, and so you tried to work a bit toward that, even if you were scrawny, as I was, and then you really enjoyed trying to pit yourself against some of the best players around, and you know, sometimes you get one over on one of the best guys around, and you feel pretty chuffed about that, and other times you get run over or beaten, and you don't feel so good about it.
They said you mentioned your try against France a few times down Mullingar.
Oh, they did they? Yeah, thanks.
What about your time coaching schools rugby in New Zealand? What do you take from that still applies to it?
I think you take little bits all the way along. So whether it was through the schools, I think with the school, you know, we had a 20-year reunion from when we played in the national final recently when I was back in New Zealand, and the lads went out and played a game, and they hadn't played. Most of them retired. They're kind of mid to late 30s now, but they went out and played, and they still looked like they could play the game and still played well. And so, you know, I think it is very much a skill-based game where you're trying to broaden the base of individuals so that the team as a group can play in a variety of ways very effectively. And I think that's how schools operate. It's a very physical game in New Zealand. There's you know, there's a big influence of Polynesian and Māori players who are naturally powerful people, and it does make it a real challenge to match yourself against some of those schools, particularly in the school that I was teaching at the time, Palms North Boys. You know, you play against the big Auckland schools, and they are big schools, but they're big boys as well. So you had to be really skilled. You had to be a little bit clever in how you played the game, and we had some guys who did really well doing that.
Some of the same things still apply. When you decided to go pro, how did you come to that decision, or was it an easy decision for you, pro coaching?
It is utterly accidental, really. I just got asked one time. I was actually doing a year's study leave to finish my Masters in management, and I got asked by Bay Plenty would I coach their backs for them, and so I got involved doing that, and they asked me if I'd stay on and do it permanently, and so I did it for another year, and then I I got a couple of emails from Super Rugby franchises and asked if I'd be interested in maybe helping them out, and I ended up going to the Blues for 3 seasons, and then from there went to Claremont for 3 seasons, Leinster for 3, and Ireland for 3.
Before you left home, what are the things that from New Zealand rugby and the coaching structure there and the system and the style of coaching that still apply here in New Zealand?
Yeah. I don't think it's any different really. I think the All Black coaching structure is incredibly effective because they make no secret of the primacy of the All Blacks. Everything is channeled up to make sure the All Blacks are the most competitive they can be, because they generate the funding that supplies the game in New Zealand, you know. And I think, you know, they're such an iconic brand that they are, you know, quite lucrative for New Zealand to build their game around, build their base around, and you know, I think it works really effectively. And coaching in, you know, the NPC or Super Rugby, we got fantastic access to the All Black coaches who would come in, and when we had our conferences, they would come in and they would take sessions, or you know, certainly spend time with the Super Rugby coaches and you know, allow us to kind of quiz them on their knowledge and grow our own knowledge a little bit as well. So, you know, I think at the time, Graham Henry, Steve Hansen, you know, Wayne Smith, they were all involved, and so you know, it was great to be able to catch up with those guys and learn a bit from them.
They might curse that access now. You've had all those experiences. What would you describe your coaching philosophy as right now?
I think I don't probably really have a coaching philosophy other than to try to, I suppose, integrate everybody into some sort of plan that best suits the individuals that you have. I think sometimes if you have a philosophy and you say, right, we want to do this, but you've got not the right people to do it with, I think mine would be pretty flexible. I just look at it and prefer to try to build on whatever there is as the base. And so individually, what can an individual do to improve their game, and then collectively, how can we build that as a unit or as a team to try to be more effective. So I think one of the frustrations being involved with the national coach is that we're here about to play the best team in the world, and we had a couple of trainings. It's nothing to do with coaching, it's just getting people organised. You know, if we don't make our passing quite right, or it's very hard to do a lot about that because you don't get the opportunity to do the repetition. So, you know, that's one of the preferences I have about being involved in a provincial or club team, where during the season you can build and expand on your on the way you play the game, because you're always looking to add a bit of value to different individuals.
Well, really interesting stuff, Eddie. You've had that experience of coaching against your native land. What was that like?
Well, it was kind of weird, really. You know, I mean, it happened to me twice. I was with the Eagles for the World Cup of '99 and as assistant coach, and I was head coach in 2011 against Ireland in New Plymouth. It's kind of a strange thing, and it probably hits you in the guts most during the national anthems, you know, because you're standing with the Eagles and they're all singing the Star Spangled Banner, and then Ireland's call rolls off and you're used to singing to that, and you're kind of between a rock and a hard place. But I suppose, you know, that's that side of it, that's the emotional side of it, but you do have to clear your head like every coach, every player does, and you just bear down then on what's really important is the performance. And I think that's really, you know, there will be some pang, I think, during the New Zealand national anthem for Joe tomorrow. It wouldn't be human if there wasn't, but when that's over, it's all about business, you know. Yeah,
a bit of a mental hurdle for him. You mentioned the All Blacks mental skills earlier on. What do Ireland need to be, what place do they need to be in mentally for this game?
You just need to be really, really rigorously on top of your game. In other words, like 100% commitment, like for you know 85 minutes if it takes that, you know, because the one thing at the moment we've seen with this All Blacks team is that any mistake, any lapse usually gets punished, and punished badly. So this capacity they have to just hurt people based on them making a mistake. So for us, when we're defending, we just got to defend really, really smart, very aggressively. And if we do it for 5 phases, do it for 10 phases. If you do it for 10, do it for 15. Break those sets into blocks. Like, don't defend for 17 phases and on the 18th phase make a horrible error and give them a soft try. And that's mentally more than anything. And then when we have the ball, I think we've got to hold on to it. Like, even if we don't beat them up in terms of winning collisions or getting behind them, as long as we give the ball, they can't score. It sounds ridiculous, but we need to build that pressure, and they're capable of giving away penalties. They're capable of giving us a chance to maybe get into the corners, take down a maul, rumble it in, or maybe run a power play. We've seen Joe use power plays now and again in strike zones, get a couple of power plays off, and maybe skin them a couple of times and ask those questions. But if we don't have the accuracy on both sides of the football, I think we're asking for trouble, and that's the big test for us tomorrow. Being 80 minutes of accuracy, we could be there with 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, you mentioned those power plays, and Ireland have been quite innovative under Joe Schmidt. Maybe that hasn't been as obvious in the last year. Things have slowed down, or they've got set in their ways a little bit. Is it going to take something different?
Yeah, you've got to throw a curveball here. Excuse the baseball pun. We're in Chicago, but you've got to throw a curveball at them and see if they can manage it. And I think he will. I mean, it's the ideal time to do it. Look, if Ireland win tomorrow, it would be probably the shock of the season. Let's be honest. Let's not kid ourselves. We're playing the best team in the world. We're ranked outsiders to beat them. But if you're going to do it, you're going to have to throw something different at them. If we give them what they expect, they're not going to be too troubled. And I think that's the key tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, thanks so much for your insight. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thanks so much at home for watching, and we'll see you next time, hopefully reflecting on an historic win for Ireland in Chicago.